I stayed in the Copper Queen Hotel in Bisbee, Arizona. It has a number of fairly infamous hauntings. Usually people report seeing women in 1900 era dresses and minors and a little boy who supposedly drowned in a nearby stream. I was always fascinated with the paranormal growing up, but never really completely believed in ghosts. My mom threw herself into the interest head first as well, but she put a significant amount of trust in the hoaxy TV shows like Ghost Adventures and whatnot. I was moving out to Arizona for college, and before they dropped me at the dorms for my freshman year, my parents wanted to do an Arizona tour. My mother begged for us to stay at the Copper Queen since it's been the focus of many a ghost hunting show. She downloaded a stupid hunting app too that allowed ghosts to use their electromagnetic energy to choose words in the app and speak to you. Obviously, it was a random word generator. The Copper Queen was gorgeous, really well maintained and antiquated. My mom immediately took my dad by the arm, Ghost app pulled up and dragged him to the bar/lounge area to look for ghosts. I took our bags upstairs and began unpacking. Okay, here's the weirdness. As I unpacked between the two beds, I suddenly felt little tiny footsteps in the floor coming from the other side of my parents' bed. I stopped and listened. Then I heard the footsteps coming closer and felt them stop directly in front of the gap between the two beds where I stood. My heart was racing like crazy, and I was frozen in place. I finally gathered up the nerve to ask whatever it was, "Are you there?" I was embarrassed the moment it came out of my mouth because it may very well have been a kid out in the hallway. I shit you not, guys, I heard a giggle. Something was giggling right in front of me. It was clear as day and sounded so close I thought I could touch the source. Then it stopped, and the little footsteps ran around to the other side of my bed. It giggled and disappeared. I immediately ran out of the room into the hallway to look around and find a kid somewhere, but it was empty. My parents were just arriving to the room as well. I asked them if they saw any kids running around by the elevator or stairs. They said no. I barely slept that night. I worked in IT for a guy named Mike Milken, and every year he puts on this huge conference that brings world leaders and millionaires together for a conference ring called Global Conference. We would rent out pretty much all of the Beverly Hilton for a full 7 days. You can go to this if you like. It just costs thousands of dollars to do so. I am also interested in hotel staff and hauntings, so I asked every staff member I could about any other worldly experiences. I heard a couple of people talk about Merv Griffin, the game show creator slash host slash composer. He bought the place in the 80s and loved to hang out there after he retired. After he died, the staff said they would see him not as a ghostly shape but as actual Merv walking down one of the hallways near the kitchens occasionally. Ultimately, though, the cleaning staff was terrified of the 8th floor. It's not a tall hotel, and the 8th floor was a party type room. It was a medium sized banquet type area with a low ceiling. It has a bathroom and a view of Beverly Hills with rounded red leather couches and maroon velour sided walls. There is a curved bar and glass tables with razor blade marks on them from the copious amounts of cocaine that had been chopped up for consumption. I know you see this room in your head skull right now. The story goes that there was a lady that would go up there and clean the place by herself after the parties were over. One night she was almost done and finishing up in the bathrooms cleaning the sinks. She heard a girl behind her, then something brush across her shoulder. She turned quickly around and no one was there. She turned back to the sink and there was a piece of gum where there had previously been none. She swore there was no gum in the sink prior as she was cleaning the sink when it happened, so that was her focus. After that, the cleaning staff would not go up there unless they had to, and at night they would go in doubles. They also started to clean the floor in the morning, again with two people. My buddy slash coworker and I had to go up and check this out. We were getting chills listening to the story and had to see for ourselves. So at about 9 p.m. we went up there as it was vacant for the night and we pretty much had run off the hotel. Right before we went up though, we saw one of the cleaning staff and told him we were going up. And he got this look like, "You are an idiot." We head up, check the whole room out and take it in like I described above. We go over to the little bathroom where the gum incident happened and we recreated the scene. I stood at the sink, my buddy brushed my shoulder and I turned around. Nothing, absolutely nothing at all. We didn't feel coldness or freakiness, just plain old us on the top floor. We were a bit disappointed and were saying things like, "What did we expect?" type of conversation. We noticed the weird music on the speaker in the elevator that we hadn't noticed coming up. It was a girl kind of singing slash laughing, very eccentric stuff. When we got off, we saw the cleaning dude from earlier and told him that we saw nothing. There was no ghost up there. Then my buddy mentioned the interesting choice of music in the elevator. The cleaning guy said, "What music?" And we replied, "The music in the elevator." He then pointed out that there is no speaker in the elevator, never has been. We shit our pants, went back into the elevator cautiously because we couldn't believe that what we were hearing was not coming from a speaker. Being IT experts, we knew how to look for wires and speaker covers and such, and there were none. It was an old elevator that just wasn't wired for that. We fucked out of that elevator and tried to avoid it the rest of the time we worked there. My wife used to work at the Great Wolf Lodge in Mason, Ohio. She worked third shift at the front desk for 5 years and things would happen there constantly. Many times I would take her to work and hang out in the lobby until she got off instead of making the long drive back home and then back to get her in the morning. Employees she worked with would share stories with me all the time of things that happened to them or to guests. One room in particular that seems to be the most haunted had reports from guests that something in the middle of the night would jump on their beds. One day the bathtub overflowed and the water leaked out into the basement. When they checked the room, nobody had been in there and the room hadn't been rented. It seemed as if a lot of the things that happened there either happened in the lobby or on the first floor. The lobby and main floor are actually the second floor. Every night they had to print a report and get it from the main office on the first floor. My wife went down the stairs and while she walked, the elevator started following her from the lobby to the first floor. When she got down there, the doors to it opened and nobody was in it, nor was there anybody waiting for it. Another night, she had got the report and was waiting at the doors for the elevator. Behind her, she heard a man say, "You never asked my name." She spun around and nobody was there. She walked down the halls and found nobody with her anywhere. One night, she got a call from the office, but nobody was supposed to be in there and it was locked at night. The night shift supervisor went down to check it out with security and found the door to be still locked and nobody in there. That happened quite a bit. One time he came back upstairs from checking and as soon as he reached the top of the stairs, a phone that sat at the host station at one of the restaurants there rang. So he picked it up. The extension it called from was the office and he heard nothing but dead air. A religious man and skeptic, he just laughed it off as he always did and hung up the phone with a shrug. Another night, she got a call from an extension she didn't recognize and when she answered it, she heard nothing but dead air. Not even her supervisor knew the extension. After hanging up, she decided to call the extension back and the phone in front of her supervisor, who sat right next to her at the desk, rang. He picked it up and they confirmed that it was her that called. except it wasn't his extension at all, and upon further investigation, they found that extension did not exist anywhere in the hotel. One night I had to use the bathroom, so I walked down the hall of the lobby to the bathroom. As I got to it, I looked up and saw someone walking in ahead of me. All I saw was their leg from about the knee down. It appeared to be a white guy, red shorts, white socks, and gray shoes. I was only a few feet away, yet nobody had been in front of me in the hall. And as I went into the bathroom, I didn't see him. So I looked in each stall and found I was alone. There was absolutely nowhere for him to go. Another night, sometime around Halloween, they had the lobby all decorated and there was a DJ booth. Right around 4:45 in the morning, it began playing a song really loud and scared the hell out of all of us. The supervisor went to shut it off, and after he did, he informed us that it had been off when he came in. I mean, it had been off the whole time I was there too. The place is right next to Kings Island, which is also supposed to be haunted, and ghost hunters did a show from there once and found nothing. I'm not sure why they never bothered going to the lodge next door to hunt. They would probably turn up all kinds of things as stuff happens regularly there. Maybe the company doesn't want that kind of publicity. Guess I ruined that. Should you ever happen to go to do some hunting, things seem to happen mostly between 3 and 5 in the morning. So, this is an experience I had in 2018 when I was a management trainee with an organization, and it entailed a short 1 or 2 week stint across their major offices in different cities. Our office organized for accommodation for us too. For my second stint, I was put in a city where I had never been before and had no friends or acquaintances. So the company booked a hotel close to the office premises. The room was rather big and seemed quite luxurious, albeit a bit old and shabby. What stumped me the most was how economical it was. The first night was uneventful, and for a woman traveling alone for the first time, it felt secure and comfortable. The second night, at about 9:30 p.m., I ordered in, and after finishing my dinner, I went out of my door to place the food trolley for collection by the staff. Just when I turned around to close my door, I saw someone staring at me from the corner of my eye. The person was at the end of the corridor and it was very dimly lit. Let me add here, that was only 2 out of the 20 rooms on the floor were occupied and 10 were being renovated, hence the dim lighting at night. When I turned to look, the person ran out of view towards the elevator. I was creeped out and locked the room and reported this to the reception. Third night, I was talking to my mom on a video call and heard heavy pacing and running at about 10 or 10:30 p.m. My mom heard it too. I sneaked to the peephole and saw no one, but I heard the footsteps right outside my door. Called the reception and they sent someone to check, who reported that there was no one, and I checked their CCTV footage. No one was there. Fourth night, I got a call on the hotel intercom, and when I answered, I heard only heavy breathing and low growling noises. This continued another 2 times before I called the reception again to raise a complaint. They checked their call panel records and said I had not received calls from any current hotel guest or staff lines. I checked again next morning just to be sure, and they showed how the system is automated and no one can tamper with it. It showed no incoming or outgoing calls from my room. Fifth night, heard a constant knocking on the wall behind the bed, and it moved across the room basis where I was standing. This creeped me out much more, and as someone diagnosed with hyperanxiety and depression, it felt like I was losing my mind and I got an anxiety attack. I ran out of my room to the reception 2 floors below, and the manager on duty calmed me down and I was extremely upset. I questioned everyone around and none of the staff said anything and said it was strange such things were happening. Later, A woman from my hometown who was currently employed there accompanied me to a new room they assigned me to. She told me in private that the floor I was on was sealed for 5 years and had recently been opened. Rumor has it that some old staff had molested a woman and she was killed in the struggle. The administration covered it up and paid off the perpetrator and family of the victim and sold this property to the current owners. Since then, people have reported multiple occurrences on that floor. Also, these were major events. Some other small things happened, like the feeling of being watched constantly, cold spots, and feelings of nausea and panic. I checked out promptly the next morning and got another hotel paid from my pocket, and have since then been extremely scared and anxious to be alone in any hotel room. If you don't believe in ghosts, I totally respect that. To be honest, before I worked at this hotel, I wasn't sure what I believed myself. When I was 19, I worked as a night auditor at a 4-star hotel in my hometown. I am not naming the hotel because they aren't out at about being haunted. If I had have known, I don't know if I would have applied to work there, especially at night. When I was hired, I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement stating I couldn't talk to anyone, especially the media, about my experiences on the job. I didn't think anything of it at the time. I assume all hotels have something like this. On my first night, aka my training shift, I was taught that 2 to 3 times a night we were supposed to walk around the hotel. The hotel was so small that the night auditor doubled as night security. For some context, each hallway had these beautiful floor-length mirrors at each end of the hall. The person training me advised me not to look into the mirrors while I was walking around, because if I saw something, I wasn't allowed to scream. This advice seemed harmless enough. On my third night shift, I happened to be sitting at the front desk with my trainer, and we had a good view out the front door. The parking lot was well lit. Suddenly, movement caught the corner of my eye. A child-sized red-cloaked figure quickly came into view. As they walked by, they turned to look into the glass front door. Words don't do the face justice. Let's just say it wasn't the face of a living, breathing child. I sat there stunned, unable to process what I just saw. I was about to open my mouth when I looked over to my trainer, who was staring open mouthed. She barely uttered, "Did you see that?" A long time passed of us just being quiet. Things were super awkward and uncomfortable for the rest of the shift. My trainer quit the moment the morning manager came in. She kept repeating that she had had enough and seen enough. The next night, the manager herself agreed to change her schedule to finish my training. We got along really well and we started chatting casually. When I finally worked up the courage to ask about my old trainer quitting, the manager admitted that they never kept night auditors long, and some of the more tenured day staff actually had a betting pool about how long people would last at night. She reluctantly went on to explain why. The backstory is, the hotel started life as Mill in the mid-1800s when the town was founded, and remained so until after World War II. In the 1940s, there was a tragic accident where a little girl fell down the elevator shaft and her grandfather and her dog fell to their deaths trying to save her. This was actually part of the reason the mill was shut down. It was left empty until it was turned into a hotel in the 1970s. Since then, they have been quietly plagued by numerous ghostly encounters. The owners of the hotel didn't want this advertised because they were trying to project the image of a 5-star hotel, not a heaven for ghost hunters. She said that apparently the old man ghost was at peace and hadn't been encountered since the mid-90s. I worked there in the mid-2000s. Aside from occasionally hearing unexplained barking noises coming from 2 specific rooms, which interestingly enough were on the top floor on either side of the original elevator shaft, the dog wasn't making many appearances either. The little girl ghost was the only one who was active. Interestingly enough, that manager, who had been there for about 5 years, quit 3 months later when she was working late one evening and kept hearing a child's laughter. When the hotel was mostly empty and there were no children staying in the hotel, I made it 6 months.